there a conspiracy against Donald Trump? What does Jim Webb know that we don't know? Is Joe Biden in or out of the race, that is? We'll talk about all this and more. Here we go.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines on We Are America Radio. War.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
Live from the People's Republic of New York City. You're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Baradelli here. Not a lot of people around right now. I'm flying solo tonight, mainly because of two reasons. Reason number one, the Mets are currently locked in a battle with the Chicago Cubs. Let's go Mets. Reason number two, there's currently a Brooklyn Young Republicans meeting going on, so Russ Gallo may be there. I know all my audience is there tonight. So, no problem. Everybody's going to catch this on replay. And a quick programming note for those of you listening to the show right now. Starting next week, Behind Enemy Lines Radio will be listed on iHeartRadio. That's right, folks. Another way you can listen to the show, in addition to Spreaker and Stitcher and all the other outlets that are out there. iTunes, of course, we're listed on there as well. Now we're also on iHeartRadio, starting next week. Great news for the show. More audience will be exposed to Behind Enemy Lines. The best kept secret on radio. You guys already know about it, and thanks for tuning in. So let's get down to it right now. We got a lot of ground to cover. A lot of topics to discuss. Topic number one that I want to touch on is really came from an article that I read in the New York Post over the weekend. And the question is this. Is there a conspiracy, a plan, a plot to stop the Donald from getting the nomination? And you know, when you think about this topic, normally you think about the idea that he's a Trump troll and that he's really a Hillary troll. He's really working with the Democrats to kind of undermine the Republican Party. I've heard that before. But I got to really ask this question based on a couple of points. And let's see if we can follow along the breadcrumb trail with me. I'm not exactly Alex Jones, but I'll dabble in conspiracy theories once in a while just to provoke a little thought amongst you, our learned audience. Point number one on this topic. Plants in the crowds. There's been wide reports that a tried and true method of dirty politics is coming back in style in the Republican primaries, and that is the plant. Or there's actually a very bad term that goes with that what this practice is. It starts with the word rat and ends in an expletive with an ing at the end. I think you could figure out what it is. But it's been going on since time immemorial when it comes to politics. I know in the People's Republic of New York City happens all the time in live debates, in town halls, and places like this, where the opposing side, usually it's the Democrats doing it, puts someone in the crowd to ask a question that you know is on a hard topic, or that you know nobody wants to answer, or does it to embarrass the candidate. Well, in this case, we have a Jeb Bush intern named Lauren Bachelda, and the reason why I pronounce that name because there's a Bachelda Street near me in my house here in the People's Republic of New York City. Lauren Bachelda, who was in a crowd at the No Labels Summit in New Hampshire, and here is the question she asked and the response that it elicited. As soon as I get the audio queued up here, and here I go again. Here's the audio with Lauren Bachelder right now.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can prove me wrong, but I don't think that you're a friend to woman.
I knew I shouldn't have picked her. I knew I shouldn't have picked her. All right, so let me give you that answer right now. I respect women incredibly. I have had women working for me in positions that they've never worked in terms of construction, in terms of so many different jobs. I had a woman who was in charge of the building of Trump Tower many years ago, before it was even thought, before anybody would have even thought of it.
I want to get paid the same as a man, and I think you understand that. So if you become president, will a woman make the same as a man, and do I get to choose what I do with my body?
You're going to make the same if you do as good a job. You're going to make the same if you do as good a job, and I happen to be pro-life. Okay? I'm pro-life.
Mr.
Yes,
Trump,
ma'am.
my name is Michaela Connery, and in the spirit of problem solving, I'm wondering if you're at all concerned that some of the divisive language you use on the campaign trail undermines your ability to solve.
And then it led into another question there, but you kind of heard it, right? That's clearly a plan. Now, forget the fact that we found out that is a Jeb intern that was asking the question. But you could just tell by the way it was delivered. If you saw the video of this young woman with her hands on her hips standing there sternly talking to Donald Trump, you knew, come on, you knew this was a plant to begin with. You knew that there was something fishy there, that this wasn't just a question that came out of the blue. And to be honest with you, like I said, this has been going on for a while now in politics, but I never thought I'd see it within the Republican Party. This, to me, is a sign, folks. It's a sign that the establishment is getting weak in the knees. Their backs cracking, their livers quivering. They're scared, man. They're scared of the grassroots movement. They're scared of the anger. They're scared that they are reaping what they sow now. Let me break it down for everybody here. Donald Trump is the only candidate out there, either side, that is inspiring people to actually come out to see him. Scary thought to some, not so scary to others. To me, it's a matter of you reap what you sow. For too long, the grassroots have been ignored. For too long, the establishment has tried to impose their will on the grassroots movement of the Tea Party, whatever you want to call it. And in response to that, in response to the broken promises of John Boehner and Mitch McConnell to be actual leaders after they won in 2014, in response to the Thad Cochrans of the world using Democrats to win their seat back, in response to the crisis of confidence that the grassroots has in the establishment, you are now reaping what you sow. You are now getting the year of the outsider. You are now getting Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson. The list goes on and on. But let's get back to Donald Trump for just 1 second now. Plants in the crowd. Media jumps all over it, of course. I mean, we all remember the plant about the guy from White Plains. Couldn't even get his name. Talking about Obama being a Muslim, and then the reaction from Anderson Cooper and Chris Matthews, all talking about, well, Donald Trump didn't correct the guy. He just placated and moved on. You don't placate someone like that. Come on. If anybody knows a New Yorker, and I know New Yorkers, you end up saying, yeah, sure to the crazy, and then you move on. That's kind of how things are done. But not for nothing, folks. Can you think of another candidate, frontrunner, any frontrunner in history, that has been under more scrutiny than the Donald? How many calls have there been for substantive platforms? Listen, I've been one of them. I got to admit it. I am not a Trump supporter. I am not a fan. I am not one of his guys. I don't have any line to his campaign. I don't talk to them often. In fact, I think I've talked to them once to ask for an interview, which I'm still waiting for, by the way. But when you see the treatment of Donald Trump's campaign versus the treatment of, say, I don't know, Hillary Clinton's campaign, the kit gloves, the front runner treatment that she's been getting, I don't want press here, I don't want press there, and them putting up with it and taking it and still coming back to defend her. Look at the scrutiny Donald Trump's campaign's been getting. You ask for specifics, he gives you specifics. You ask for staying power, he gives you staying power. You ask for a 50-state operation, he's developing a 50-state operation. And he's got donors. The Donald has donors. That to me is the most shocking part of the whole thing. And guess where they're coming from? They're not coming from the top 1% of campaign donors. They're not coming from the multi-billionaires that are like Donald Trump. They're coming from grassroots people. Success breeds contempt. And who is getting more contempt than the Donald right now? And the reason why he's getting such contempt is not because he's a billionaire and he flaunts it. It's not because that he's brash and braggadocious. It's because he said I was going to be the leader and he's the leader. It's because he said once I get into the race, the whole game changes, and the game changed. Give the man credit for that. Donald Trump knows what he's doing when it comes to salesmanship. He knows all about salesmanship. He knows how to play to the crowd. He's been selling himself for years, folks. Campaigning should be second nature. Everybody knows the game right now. Donald Trump has been selling the Trump brand on TV, in media, book sales. Yeah, a board game, for God's sakes. The man knows what he's doing when it comes to retail politicking. He's got the meaning out of the palm of his hand. Whether he can turn that into votes at the polls remains to be seen still. But for right now, Donald Trump has the meaning out of the palm of his hands. And when you look in comparison to the other side, what do you have? Jeb Bush, who's, by the way, his burn rate through his money is quicker than a California wildfire right now. The man is just spending like you wouldn't believe, like there's no tomorrow, spending like a desperate candidate. Most of it's probably going to consultants and campaign people. You got to think they're trying to figure this out. But you got Jeb burning through money, panicking. You got the retreads and the has-beens of, the Lindsey Grahams and the Jim Gilmores and the George Patakis. You got, my goodness, you got the inspiring John Kasich and Chris Christie. I don't know if they inspire anybody else too much, but yawn to me. Especially when Chris Christie trying to act differently than his own personality. Remember in the second debate being the peacemaker? Being the voice of reason? We all know that he's playing to the people. Not inspiring there. And then you got the other two outsiders, Carson and Fiorina. Both making their way as best they can. Carson, I've called him the anti-Trump because he's been making his headway through an opposite means than Donald Trump. And it works for those who don't like the brash and braggadocious. They like the soft-spoken and centered and kindly speak, if you want to call it that. The anti-Trump. And then you have the others that are trying to make their way through, and I'm talking about Rubio, Cruz, and Paul. Rubio and Cruz, probably most favorable comparisons of Barack Obama at this point. Both one-term senators, both charismatic in their own way, both with little or no track record of leadership, but they talk a good game. I personally like Ted Cruz a lot. I think he has some conservative creds. I know people who like Marco Rubio, and I think he's laying in the weeds for waiting for his moment. And then you have Rand Paul, who's gone the way of kind of the Scott Walkers and the Rick Perrys of the world, trying to attack Donald Trump and not getting him anywhere fast. That method isn't working. He needs to get onto a different game plan. But, like I said, you reap what you sow. When you have a Congress that wins the majority in the Senate, expands their already supermajority in the House, and you don't get anything in return for that in the first year of their leadership, and in fact, you get more chaos than you get leadership, then you reap what you sow. You basically created Donald Trump. You created Carly Fiorina. You created Ben Carson. You have created an angry giant here at the grassroots level that is ready for some radical change. Nobody wants radical change if you're part of the establishment in government, if you're part of the quote-unquote Washington cartel, as Ted Cruz likes to say. The Republican establishment doesn't want change because they have a predictable by-the-numbers formula that they want to win by. The Dems don't want change because they'll expose them for the frauds and the lies that they are. And we're going to be talking about that later in the show, folks. We're going to be talking a lot about the socialist mentality. what Jim Webb has called the